subcompact SUV. What is that even? I mean, growing up, SUVs used to be a four-wheel drive car for people who like playing in the mud. But it's 2017 and we have 63 identifiable genders. So it's only fair that that logic applies to cars as well, right? Well, that's how you get these two little subcompact SUVs. You take an SUV body structure, you throw it on a front-wheel drive car, chop the whole thing under 4 meters, and et voila, you have a subcompact SUV. The thing is, if this all sounds really ridiculous to you, it's because it is.
Now, aside from the fact that Dipayan's tolerance for change is as low as his IQ, he does have a point here. The vehicles here might have SUV stands, but they are city sleekers. It all started with the Ford EcoSport back in 2013. This was the vehicle that created the subcompact SUV space, and since then, the whole segment is reporting a double-digit growth year on year. Over the years, we have seen the introduction of Maruti Suzuki Vitara Brezza, Tata came in with the Nexon, and Honda's answer to this space was with the WRV. Ford initially started running packed houses with the EcoSport. It was selling more cars than it could sell. The waiting periods were too long. And since then, as it started to fade out, the new players hit Ford hard. Come 2017, Ford has hit back with this.
So we have the sort of spirit animal of the subcompact SUV space, which is the Ford EcoSport. Honda must have got the memo as to what they need to do to make a subcompact SUV, and they did exactly what I would have done. They took it and tossed it out of the window. And that's how you get this.
Now Dipayan, this is just ridiculous. You have got a hatchback to a subcompact SUV shootout.
Well, you may say so, but how much ground clearance do you have?
I have 200 millimeters in.
Well, I have 188, and you know as well as I do that 1 centimeter isn't going to make a difference.
Well, it's not, but I'll play along. I have 30 horsepower more under this hood.
Well, the Ford EcoSport is going to need it. It weighs 200 kilograms than my little premium hatchback.
Alright, you know what? I've had enough of this. I'm off. Crew, chalo.
Now that he's gone with what he thinks is the entire crew, we can talk a little more about the WRV's design. And while it may not look like the rest of the cars in the space, the WRV does stand out. And that's because it's got a lot of cues from the Jazz on which it is based, although Honda have given it a lot of sharper indents and creases to make it look more muscular. These 16-inch gunmetal alloy wheels add to the appeal. 188 millimeters of ground clearance, a sharp but thick chrome plate in the front paired with the LED DRLs, and the sharp indents on the bonnet make it look more rugged and sharper and more like an SUV. Now at the rear, the beefy theme does continue, but I really like the way that Honda have laid this out. It's got this chrome plate in the middle that ties it all together, but it's been tastefully laid out. I love the way that they've designed these LED tail lamps, and of course there's some cladding to remind you that this is of course still a subcompact SUV.
Now remember, this is the first big facelift on the Ford EcoSport, and it's the face of the car that hosts some major changes. Starting with the headlamp cluster with DRLs that gives the car much more angular and aggressive look. Also, the fog lamp cluster and the indicators have been integrated into one triangular cluster down here. The bonnet of the car has not changed much, but it gets these two shut lines running south that gives the car much more modern appeal. Ford has also added its family grille here, which carries its design legacy of SUVs onto the EcoSport now.
Now most subcompact SUVs follow a certain format. On the outside, they're rugged, utilitarian and go-anywhere vehicles. On the inside, they have to be premium, and in that sense, the WRV is bang on cue. I love the all-black interiors, and I love the way that Honda have integrated the air conditioning and the digipad system into this all-black piano black finish. I love the way that Honda's Dipayan system feels to touch and use. It's a good UI, although I do miss Android Auto and Apple CarPlay integration because it makes it a lot easier to use. The Mirror Link app is slightly more difficult. The steering wheel, which is from the Jazz, as you can see, is about right in every sense. It's got all the right features. It feels premium to touch, and that's the important thing. The gear knob deviates from Honda's usual circular knob, and I love the way that the gates have a mechanical clink to them when you put them in gear. It makes you feel like you're driving something. It makes you feel like you are in an SUV, even though this is in essence a subcompact SUV. Now, the piece de resistance that is on the WRV and not on too many other cars in this segment is the fact that it actually comes with a sunroof. So the WRV also has a number of storage spaces. As you can see, it has bottle holders in both doors. It has cup holders in the center console. It has an armrest with storage. But my favorite cubby on the WRV, however, is this cup holder that fits in right next to the steering wheel, which makes it really easy to retrieve your cup, have a sip and put it back without having to fumble around in the center console.
Now perhaps the biggest change onto the Ford EcoSport Facelift has been done to its interiors, and remember that button heavy dash that used to be here? Well, that has now been replaced with this nice pop-up style infotainment system here. There's nice little plastic touch finished in piano black finish that gives it a very premium appeal to overall otherwise simple dashboard. There is automatic climate control, and the instrument cluster also has a very small digital display. Well, I hope that the font of it would have been a bit bigger, but it still works. But the highlight has to be the infotainment system here. It supports Apple CarPlay, it supports Android Auto, and it has a nice fade in fade out effect to the overall touch. But one thing that it misses out, which WRV supports, is the inbuilt navigation. But in this generation of smartphones, you don't need one to have an inbuilt navigation support directly to the infotainment system, especially when you can connect your smartphones directly to the screen.
On the second row of seats in the WRV, things just get better. You see, in your usual subcompact SUV, that SUV-like body structure comes at a price, and that's space on the second row of seats. As you can see, I'm sitting in the second row of seats in the WRV, and I have a lot of legroom. I have a lot of headroom, and it feels spacious even with this all black interior. Had I been in the back seat of the EcoSport, I'd be slightly squirmed for space. You also get your convenient cubbies in the back seats. You get these little holders under the armrest, and you get two bottle holders as well.
No change onto the dimensions of the car has resulted in the similar cabin space as that of the previous Ford EcoSport. Having said that, there is enough knee room and headroom onto the rear seat of the car. However, there is lack of sense of space onto the rear seat when compared to the Honda WRV.
Now the Honda WRV gets a 1.2 litre petrol engine which makes about 88 horsepower and 110 Nm of torque. Now this might seem a lot less than the 120 bhp on the Ford EcoSport, but remember that the Honda WRV is 200 kilos lighter, and that more or less balances both of them out in terms of power. The EcoSport does make more torque, but I don't think you're going to find a huge difference in the driving between the two. The thing I like about the Honda is the refinement in the lower ranges of the rev. The thing is, once you do put the power down, the engine does get a bit raspy, but I kind of like this really raspy feel to it. Now, in terms of safety as well, the EcoSport and the WRV are more or less evenly matched. The WRV gets 2 airbags, it gets ABS with EBD, which is electronic brake force distribution, which essentially takes the brake force from each of the tires and distributes it so as to give you the best vector through your corner or your braking. In terms of ride and handling, I think the EcoSport might have the WRV because the WRV is in essence a Jazz with some added ground clearance in terms of platform and chassis dynamics. So that means that it does have a considerable bit of body roll, especially when making fast adjustments. Otherwise, the WRV does handle overall well. I mean, you're not going to notice a big laggy difference between the EcoSport and this since the roofline is low. The EcoSport does win, but it's only by that much.
Now, not many facelifts get a major mechanical change usually these days, but the new petrol engine on this facelifted EcoSport and well, it's a very powerful, very refined and very smooth engine. It certainly is one of the best in its segment, and what's better over the WRV is the extra power which you get on this and the overall SUV stance. You sit up, your upright position, and well, WRV still feels like you're driving a hatch, so there's not that satisfaction feeling that one is looking for on an SUV. And the 1 litre EcoBoost engine has been discontinued from its EcoSport portfolio, which is a bit sad, but well, it's a good business decision at the end of the day.
So we spent the majority of the day testing the Honda WRV against the Ford EcoSport, and we've tested it on grounds of interior quality, roominess, design and engine performance. The thing is that the EcoSport might be the winner of this test. They both have manual gearboxes. They both are subcompact SUVs that make it under the sub 4 meter mark space. The thing is, the EcoSport just wins this test because it is slightly fresher, it has a better design and it looks a little more SUV than the Honda WRV does.
Having said that, also remember the Ford EcoSport is also available with the automatic gearbox, which is a big miss on the Honda WRV. For more information and if you like this comparo and many more videos, don't forget to subscribe Express Drives on the YouTube page.
And like them.